live in an unprecedented moment in history. The biblically promised nation of Israel has been reborn and become a world leader in technology, agriculture, medicine, and a champion of democratic values. The Jewish homeland is an island of hope and prosperity in a sea of turmoil. It has also become the target for the world's anti-Semitism. From college campuses to rogue regimes, the state of Israel is under attack.
As you know, there has been a sinister attempt to delegitimize Israel all over the world. This is particularly true on many college campuses in the United States. Israel needs strong supporters to speak the truth and tell the truth. And that's why it's so important for the faith-based community to come out in strong support of Israel. The countries around the world that don't like Israel are the same ones that don't like America. In fact, in Iran, when the crowds get up, they call the United States the Great Satan, and they call Israel the Little Satan.
Whether Iran is threatening to wipe Israel off the map or sending weapons to Gaza to accomplish its goals through its proxy Hamas, Iran only needs a little more time to gain weapons. Negotiations with the Iranian regime are underway. Sanctions have been eased and companies worldwide are lining up to do business with the Islamic regime. In 2013, Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh stated thousands of fighters above ground and thousands of fighters underground have been preparing in silence for the campaign to liberate Palestine. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, in the midst of the current negotiations, has said there is no way he will recognize Israel as a Jewish state and accept a Palestinian capital in just a portion of Jerusalem. While the current U.S. administration, together with past administrations, has pressured Israel and the Palestinians into negotiations, history has shown it has often led to more violence. In those days and at that time when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will enter into judgment against them concerning my inheritance, my people Israel, for they scattered my people among the nations and divided up my land. According to a recent poll, over 50 million evangelical Christians in the United States believe that the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people. In 2004, a group of Knesset members formed the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus within the Israeli parliament to reach out and engage millions of Christians worldwide who were standing in support of Israel. In 2006, members of the U.S. Congress established a bipartisan reciprocal caucus in order to send the support back to Israel and present a unified voice for the Jewish homeland, 25 additional Israel allies. Caucuses have been established in nations worldwide through faith-based diplomacy.
As the chairperson of the Christian Allies Caucus, I would like to thank the Israel Allies Foundation for all the support for Israel and all what they are arranged for us from all over the parliaments around the world. And you, our brothers and sisters from all over, I want to thank you about everything you are doing for Israel. It's very important for us to be together, especially in these days, to support Jerusalem, to save Jerusalem, and to stay with the united Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish people, forever and ever and ever. I want to thank you all and to tell you that Israel loves you, thanks you, and salute you for everything you are doing for us.
As men and women of faith, one of the caucus's unifying issues is unyielding support for an undivided Jerusalem under Israeli sovereignty. While it is U.S. law that our embassy should be in Israel's self-declared capital, multiple administrations have delayed its movement from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
By locating our embassy in Jerusalem, we would send a message to the world. Jerusalem is not on the market. Jerusalem will not be divided. The city of God will remain always and forever the undivided capital of the state of Israel. Israel is the only Jewish state in the world, and it is America's most trusted ally in the Middle East.
My name is Gene Green. I'm a member of Congress from the 29th District in Texas. Actually, it's a very urban district in Houston, Texas. I've been to Israel a number of times. As a Christian, going to Israel is so important. Those of us who grew up going to Sunday school and Bible school and catechism, we actually know Israel, and it's so special to be there. Israel is also our closest ally in the Middle East. we work more with them than any other country. We share the same values, democracies. That's why Israel is so important, not only for our religious roots, but also our political roots.
While international support for Israel fluctuates based on current events, economic pressures, or world opinion, the IAF's network support for Israel is based on personal faith and deeply held values. When other world leaders fail to stand with Israel, our congressmen and parliamentarians, informed and inspired by their Judeo-Christian values, consistently speak out in Israel's defense. Now is the time for Christian leaders and the grassroots of America to do the same.
You know, I've been a Christian since I was about 10 years old. And there's one thing I know. And that is that the link between America and Israel is vitally important. The root of Israel's legacy, the chosen children of God, that's the same root upon which our founders built the United States of America, one nation under God. I encourage Christians from all over America, clergy, lay people, Christians from all denominations, to get more involved and learn more about how important America and Israel's relationship is. Get involved in the Israel Allies Foundation today.
The leaders and members of the Congressional Israel Allies Caucus are proudly standing with Israel in Congress, but they need your help.
Hello, I'm Congressman Doug Lamborn, and I represent the people of the 5th District of Colorado. I am honored to serve as one of the co-chairs of the Congressional Israel Allies Caucus in the U.S. House of Representatives. As members of the Israel Allies Caucus, we believe in a united Jerusalem and safe and secure borders for Israel. In fact, there is legislation in the House of Representatives to move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. As I look out over our nation's capital, I want to encourage you today. There are men and women in the U.S. Congress on both sides of the aisle that are standing boldly with Israel. As a Christian, my faith compels me and inspires me to take that stand as well. And if there is one group that is standing boldly alongside your nation's leaders, it is the Israel Allies Foundation. Through interparliamentary meetings, briefings, conferences, and trips to Israel, they are providing us here in Congress with the tools we need to make a stronger stand for the Jewish state of Israel. As Israel faces mounting pressure from the world, it is up to us, men and women of faith, to not be silent. I support Israel as a Christian because it is the right thing to do, and I support Israel as an American because it is the right thing to do. Thank you for standing with Israel and its undivided capital, and God bless America and Israel.
I'd like to ask my Christian friends to actually get involved. Israel needs us to be with them. And one, to make sure we still have their democracy, but also the success they've had in the Middle East is the only democracy. And again, one of the greatest friends our country could ever have. So get involved, show support for the state of Israel, and that's what members of Congress need to hear from their constituents about how important Israel is to the United States, but also to the Middle East security.
The IAF is in partnership with churches like New Beginnings to launch an unprecedented effort to mobilize political support for Israel on the basis of Judeo-Christian values.
That means when you stand for the kingdom of David, when you stand for the land of Israel, God says, I will add my name to your name. And we need to make sure that we are a people that stand for the land of Israel. Somebody shout amen.
The administration is currently pushing a peace plan that the Palestinian Authority has little interest in negotiating and could threaten Israel's security and territorial integrity. As the United States rushes Israel to sign a peace deal without a real partner for peace, we cannot allow a deafening silence to answer this administration's ill-advised intentions. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German pastor that opposed the Nazi regime, said that the civil courage depends on a God who demands responsible action in a bold venture of faith. Now is the time for civil courage. In a nation of liberty, we are blessed with representatives in Washington elected to represent our views. It is therefore our duty as citizens, standing on the Word of God, to join our voices together and advocate for the safety and security of the only Jewish state in the world, the State of Israel.
Shalom. I want to congratulate all the participants of the Jerusalem Call and the Israel Allies Foundation, all those who take part in this important event. I'm sure you know what Israel stands for. I'm sure you're well aware of our shared values, Judeo-Christian values, values that come straight from the Bible, the book of books, and are part of the raison d'etre of the existence of our country. Unfortunately, it may be a paradox, but it's not to everyone's liking. There are many people out there who are trying to delegitimize Israel, to attack us, to persuade the world that Israel is probably the cause of all troubles that we are witnessing. You are not like that. We feel the support of the Christians from all around the world, especially from the United States. We need this support, we value this support, and I'm absolutely sure that together we'll be able to overcome and we'll be able to be really a light unto the nations coming right here from Zion, from Jerusalem. Thank you.
The Jerusalem Call is a movement, a call to stand with a united Jerusalem, a call to stand with God's covenant with the Jewish people and the land of Israel. It is a call to turn our biblical passion into political action. Now is the time to take a unified stand as men and women of faith.
As a member of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus, I would like to thank the Israel Allies Foundation for this very, very important convention that you are holding. I would like to convey our appreciation and our thanks for all your efforts, for your support to the State of Israel, for your support for our struggle to keep the Holy Land united, and I'm sure that this convention will be a very important contribution for our future projects together. Thank you very much.
We cannot be silent at this critical hour. Congress needs to hear your voice. Your elected leaders and our president need to hear your voice. We invite you to join us.